Hello, dear students. The questions or the in-text question about ozone has already been discussed. So now we should study about the sulfur and their allotropic forms. So the new topic is about the sulfur and the allotropic forms of sulfur. Sulfur forms numerous allotrops. First one is yellow rhombic sulfur, which is also known as alpha sulfur. Second one is monoclinic sulfur, which is also known as beta sulfur. So there are many, but this yellow rhombic sulfur and monoclinic sulfur are the most important allotrops of sulfur to be studied. Now we should understand a definition. The phenomena of having more than one form of an element in the same physical state is called allotropy, and these different forms of same element into the same physical states are called the allotrops. So these rhombic sulfur and monoclinic sulfur are again considered as the allotrops of sulfur. Now the first allotrop that we need to study of sulfur is known as the rhombic sulfur. The stable form of sulfur at room temperature is rhombic sulfur. So at room temperature, the form of sulfur which is stable is actually your rhombic sulfur. Rhombic sulfur is yellow colored powder. So rhombic sulfur is yellow in color and it is in the powder form. The melting point of rhombic sulfur is 385.8 Kelvin. The specific gravity is 2.06. Now we should understand the preparation. Rhombic sulfur crystals are formed on evaporating the solution of roll sulfur in the carbon disulfide. So both the forms of sulfur or sulfur is majorly soluble in carbon disulfide. So this roll sulfur is dissolved into the carbon disulfide, and then this solution is evaporated. As the solution is being evaporated, we get the rhombic sulfur. Now the properties of rhombic sulfur. Rhombic sulfur is insoluble in water. If we add rhombic sulfur to water, it is not dissolved, it forms the suspension rather. So it is insoluble. Rhombic sulfur dissolves to some extent in benzene, alcohol, and ether. These three are the non-polar solvents, and rhombic sulfur dissolves in non-polar solvents. It simply means rhombic sulfur is readily soluble in carbon disulfide. So we can easily understand that rhombic sulfur is soluble in carbon disulfide. Using rhombic sulfur, we can make monoclinic sulfur. So this allotrop of sulfur, which is known as the monoclinic sulfur, is actually prepared by using the rhombic sulfur. Preparing monoclinic sulfur. Now this is the method. How can we prepare monoclinic sulfur? Take some rhombic sulfur in china dish, heat it so rhombic sulfur melts. So first of all, you take some rhombic sulfur in a china dish and then you heat it. If you heat it, this rhombic sulfur is melted. It melts. Now cool the molten rhombic sulfur. So now we are supposed to cool that molten rhombic sulfur. Cool the molten rhombic sulfur until a crust, a thin solid layer is formed. So we'll have to keep cooling it until the thin solid layer or crust is formed into that particular rhombic sulfur or molten rhombic sulfur. Make two holes in the crust. So with some instrument, or we will have to make two holes in the crust. Now pour the remaining liquid out through holes. So inside that crust there must be some liquid. The liquid needs to be poured out. And then when we look inside the crust, now remove the crust. On removing the crust, colorless, needle shaped crystals of monoclinic sulfur or beta sulfur are found. So, when you open the crust or when you remove the crust, you will find the colorless needle shaped crystals of monoclinic sulfur, which is also known as beta sulfur. The crystals of beta sulfur are or monoclinic sulfur are stable above the temperature of 369 Kelvin. This 369 Kelvin is nothing but your 96 degrees centigrade. So these crystals of beta sulfur, which is also known as monoclinic sulfur, are stable above a particular temperature, and that temperature is 369 Kelvin. Remember, if the temperature goes below 369 Kelvin, again this monoclinic sulfur turns into the rhombic sulfur. Below 369 or 96 degrees centigrade, beta sulfur or monoclinic sulfur turns into alpha sulfur or rhombic sulfur. So now we should study about the new form of sulfur, which is known as the monoclinic sulfur. I hope, my dear students, you are enjoying your studies. We will see monoclinic sulfur into the next video. Happy learning!